Imagine coming back from a completely quiet, perfectly normal Easter weekend. You're shaking off that holiday haze, right?
You got your coffee.
Exactly. You sit down with your morning coffee and you pull up the news feed for the biggest, most historic music competition on the planet.
And you think you know what you're going to see.
Right. Because for like 70 years, this contest has been this reliable, completely predictable European institution. You know the players, you know the geography.
That's familiar territory.
It really is.
Huh.
But today, you look at the screen, and the massive live broadcast they are hyping up isn't coming from a European capital. It's coming live from Bangkok.
Yeah, it's a massive shock to the system.
And just like that, the tectonic plates of the global music industry haven't just shifted, they have completely snapped.
I mean, it's the ultimate paradigm shift. The boundaries that we've come to expect in international broadcasting, they've just been fundamentally redrawn.
Welcome to this deep dive. If you're listening to this right now, your world has likely been rocked by the absolute deluge of updates that just dropped for the 2026 season.
A lot to process, for sure.
A lot. We are looking at a completely reshaped landscape, and our mission today is to decode exactly what it all means for you.
Right. We're not just reading the headlines.
No, we are getting into the weeds. We're going to unpack the massive, totally audacious launch of Eurovision Asia in 2026. Then we're going to pivot back to Europe to analyze the meticulously constructed running orders that just dropped for the Vienna 2026 semifinals.
Which is a whole psychological study in itself.
Oh, we are going to get into the psychology of it.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll trace the deeply turbulent 3-year historical data of Malta's journey, leading right up to this very moment.
And as we move through these different arenas today, keep one overarching theme in your mind: scale and strategy.
Scale and strategy, I like that.
Because whether we are analyzing the massive geographic expansion of a legacy brand into the Asian market, or looking at a television producer who is deliberately placing an upbeat pop song right after a dark, moody ballad.
Which they love to do.
They really do.
Mm.
Or, evaluating how a single country overhauls its entire creative process to claw its way out of a non-qualification streak. None of it is accidental.
It's all calculated.
Exactly. It is all deliberate, high-stakes design.
Okay, let's jump straight into the macro view. The announcement of Eurovision Asia 2026. The headline alone is just staggering.
Staggering is the right word.
But when you actually look at the territories involved, the sheer geographical and, cultural footprint is mind-blowing. I'm looking at the list right now.
Go ahead, read them off.
We are talking about South Korea, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Laos, Bhutan, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Nepal.
Right.
You literally have everything from the Himalayan peaks down to the Philippine archipelago. It's massive.
And if you look closely at that specific list of 10 territories, you start to realize the sheer logistical mountain they're trying to climb.
Oh, the logistics have to be a nightmare.
Absolutely, because this isn't just a regional spinoff where everyone shares a similar musical vernacular.
Right. It's not like Scandinavia, where the pop structure is basically a shared language.
Exactly. They are attempting to unite the highly polished, basically billion-dollar pop idol machinery of South Korea with the deeply traditional acoustic musical heritage of nations like Bhutan or Bangladesh, all on a single stage.
Wow. Yeah, I was actually looking at that exact contrast earlier. How do you even judge that as a viewer?
It's incredibly difficult.
Because you have South Korean entertainment companies that spend, years training artists in razor-sharp choreography and vocal precision.
Yeah.
And they are going up against a potentially raw, folk-driven acoustic performance from Nepal.
And that is the ultimate question of the United by Music Across Asia slogan they've adopted.
It sounds beautiful conceptually.
Conceptually, it's gorgeous. But mechanically, it requires creating a completely new comparative baseline for an audience.
A comparative baseline? What do you mean by that?
Well, in Europe, the audience has had 70 years to develop a shared understanding of what makes a Swedish pop song competitive versus, say, an Italian ballad.
Right. We've been trained on how to listen to them.
Exactly. We have a framework. In Asia, they are attempting to synthesize that shared understanding literally overnight.
Just boom, here it is.
Yeah. They are taking localized national selection shows, operating across all of these incredibly diverse territories, and funneling them into this massive grand final in Bangkok.
And the way they are planning to broadcast this grand final in Bangkok feels like a complete departure from the tradition we're used to.
Completely.
The official announcement uses the specific phrase. It says, the show doesn't just happen on stage, it happens in your hands.
Which is very telling.
Right. They are going all in on what they call a digital-first ecosystem. So it's live broadcast, fan interaction, exclusive digital drops, prediction games, and behind-the-scenes content all happening in real time.
Which fundamentally alters the psychological relationship between the viewer and the event.
Explain that, because to me, honestly, it just sounds like they're trying to build a giant Twitch stream.
That's actually a very apt comparison. Let's look at the mechanics of traditional linear television for a second.
Okay.
For decades, the European contest has been an appointment viewing event. You sit on your couch, you watch a 3-minute song, the screen fades to black, the next act sets up, and maybe, just maybe, at the very end of the night, you pick up your phone to cast a vote.
Right. It's passive consumption followed by like a single active moment at the end.
You're leaning back for 2 hours, then you lean forward for 5 minutes.
Lean back versus lean forward. That makes a lot of sense.
But a digital-first ecosystem forces continuous lean-forward engagement. By integrating prediction games and exclusive drops directly into the viewing platform, they are monetizing the audience's attention during the interstitial moments.
Oh, wow. So when they're moving the props around on stage.
Exactly. If a viewer is predicting the jury score of the Cambodian entry, while the Laotian entry is setting up their stage props, that viewer never leaves the ecosystem.
They don't check Twitter. They don't go to the kitchen for a snack.
Right. They are gamifying the entire 2-hour block.
But wait, doesn't that inherently change what the contest actually is?
It absolutely does.
I have to push back here because if I'm a traditionalist, I'm looking at this and thinking it's a massive risk of brand dilution.
Oh, it's a huge risk.
The European contest is already facing its own internal complexities, regarding voting mechanics and staging costs. Are they just launching this shiny, gamified, digital-first version across 10 Asian territories as a distraction?
That's a valid fear.
Do you lose the soul of a 70-year-old institution when you gamify it to this extent?
Your skepticism is completely warranted, and it touches on the exact tension inherent in this whole expansion. The risk of brand dilution is severe.
Because it's a delicate ecosystem.
It is. You have a brand that already reaches over 160 million viewers annually. Expanding into Asia opens up an entirely new, massive entertainment market, but, and this is a big but, if it feels like a synthetic, hollowed-out clone of the European version, the Asian audience will reject it.
Because it would just feel like a corporate cash grab from a European broadcaster?
Precisely. Which is why success here hinges entirely on 4 highly specific
Okay,
pillars.
let's hear them.
First, the production quality in Bangkok has to be absolutely indistinguishable from the pristine audiovisual standards of the European broadcast.
Yeah.
They cannot cut corners.
Right, the lighting, the camera angles, the sound mix has to be perfect.
Second, absolute broadcaster commitment. These local Asian networks can't treat this as secondary programming. They have to push it as a flagship event.
They need to give it the prime time slot, the heavy promotion.
Exactly. Third, that digital ecosystem actually has to function flawlessly without alienating viewers who literally just want to watch the music.
Right, if my grandma wants to watch it, she shouldn't have to play a prediction game to see the stage.
Exactly. And fourth, they have to find a unique identity differentiation. It has to feel authentically Asian while maintaining the recognizable structural DNA of the original contest.
It's an incredibly delicate balance to strike. And honestly, while the executives are looking thousands of miles outward toward Bangkok for this massive 2026 launch, the producers back in Europe don't have the luxury of thinking about the macro level right now.
No, they're in the trenches.
They are entirely consumed by the meso-level strategy of the present. And that brings us to the newly released running orders for the Vienna 2026 semifinals.
The running order. This is where the abstract concept of art meets the brutal, unsentimental mathematics of live television.
I love that framing, because if you look at semifinal 1 taking place on Tuesday, May 12th, it is curated like a high-stakes, multi-course tasting menu.
That's exactly what it is, a tasting menu.
The producers have absolute control over the audience's emotional trajectory. They kick the whole thing off with Moldova. The song is Viva Moldova, and it's pure high energy.
It's the appetizer that wakes up your palate.
Yes. But then we hit slot number 2. Now, if you follow television production, you know slot 2 is widely considered the death slot.
The infamous death slot.
Yet they put Sweden there with a song called My System. Why would a producer put an absolute powerhouse country like Sweden in the statistical graveyard of the show?
To understand that, we really have to understand the psychology of the death slot.
Mm.
Why do songs fail there?
Yeah, why is it so cursed?
Because at minute 10 of a live broadcast, the audience is still settling in. They might be fixing a drink, adjusting the volume, or, texting a friend that the show has started.
Right, you're not fully locked in yet.
Exactly. The cognitive anchoring hasn't happened yet. The audience hasn't established a baseline of quality, so whatever they hear in slot 2 is easily overwritten in their short-term memory by the fireworks of slot 12 or 13.
So putting Sweden there, is it an insult or is it a flex?
Well, it is a massive flex of producer confidence.
Really?
The producers know my system is an incredibly strong, highly polished pop entry. They are essentially using Sweden to anchor the first quarter of the show.
Ah, so they're raising the baseline immediately.
They are signaling to the audience, we have so much depth in this semifinal that we can afford to drop a top-tier Swedish track at minute 10, and we know it's catchy enough to survive the memory overwrite.
Wow. And what happens right after that is brilliant. You have this slick, upbeat Swedish pop track, and then boom, slot 3 is Croatia with Andromeda.
Which is a complete tonal shift.
Entirely. It's dark, atmospheric, and incredibly mythic.
That is the contrast principle in action. Human hearing is incredibly adaptive.
How so?
Well, if you play 3 upbeat pop songs in a row, the brain literally stops processing the tempo. It just becomes sonic wallpaper. You tune it out.
So you need the shock to the system.
Right. By slamming a bright pop song against a dark, mythic atmosphere, you force the brain to actively re-engage with the audio profile.
It wakes you up. And they keep doing this. After Croatia's dark mythos, they need to bring the light back, so slot 4 is Greece with Ferto, dripping with Mediterranean emotion.
Which bridges beautifully into Portugal's Rosa in slot 5, which is very traditional and earthy.
And then, right before the first interval act, they drop Georgia in slot 6 with On Replay, which is just inherently unpredictable. They leave you buzzing right as they cut to the break.
It's masterful pacing. They are manipulating the audience's heart rate, essentially.
But the real architectural triumph of semifinal 1 is how they handle the emotional center of gravity.
Yes, the mid-show anchor.
Let's talk about that, because we hit slot 9 and we get Estonia. It's the nostalgic return of Vanilla Ninja with a track brilliantly titled Too Epic to Be True.
A great title.
Amazing title. So the audience is riding this massive feel-good wave of nostalgia. But immediately following that, in slot 10, is Israel with Michelle.
This is crucial.
This is widely considered one of the most talked about, highly anticipated entries of the entire year. Why place it exactly there right after Estonia?
Because slot 10, in this specific configuration, is prime real estate for what we call cognitive marination.
Cognitive marination. I like the sound of that, but what does it actually mean?
Think about the sequencing. You give the audience a nostalgic, upbeat rush with Estonia. Their guard is down, their mood is elevated.
Right, they're smiling, they're happy.
Then you deliver Israel's Michelle, which is a highly discussed, likely very emotionally impactful piece. And what happens immediately after Israel?
Let me check the second interval act, Germany's Fire.
Exactly. The producers do not put another competitor immediately after Israel. They put an interval act.
Oh, so there's a buffer?
A massive buffer. This means Israel's entry gets to sit in the viewer's mind. The audience isn't immediately forced to evaluate another competitor. They can just process what they just heard while watching a non-competitive performance.
That is so smart. You don't bury a highly discussed track in the opening rush. You place it right before a break so the emotional resonance actually has time to settle.
Exactly. You let it marinate.
That makes so much sense. But okay, a tasting menu is great until you get to the end of the meal, and some dishes are served when the audience is already full.
Right. The fatigue sets in.
In live TV, the late slots are generally golden due to the recency effect. People remember what they just saw right before they vote. Slot 11 goes to Belgium with Dancing on the Ice, which is very modern, competitive pop.
A very strong placement for Belgium.
And slot 12 is Lithuania with Solo Quiero Más, a huge Spanish language surprise. They clearly benefit from riding the momentum of the show's final act right into the voting window.
They absolutely do.
But we have to talk about the structural casualties of this running order.
The uphill battles. The ones who got the short end of the stick.
Right. If you're looking at this running order right now, you really have to feel for Montenegro and San Marino.
It's a brutal draw for them.
Let's look at Montenegro first. They are in slot 8 with Nova Zora, which is a classic, slow Balkan ballad. But look at what surrounds them.
It's a wall of sound.
Slot 7 is an explosive duet from Finland called Liikenheiten. Slot 9 is that massive nostalgic rush from Estonia we just talked about.
Right.
Putting a delicate, slow-cooked broth between a spicy taco and a heavy dessert ruins the palate. Montenegro is just completely swallowed by the surrounding energy.
And San Marino faces a remarkably similar structural disadvantage in their slot.
Yeah, they have Senhit returning in slot 13 with Superstar.
Now, Senhit brings incredible flair, we know this,
Huh?
but she is sandwiched directly after Lithuania's massive Spanish-language surprise.
Which is going to be super loud and energetic.
Exactly. And right before Poland's highly emotional ballad, Pray, in slot 14, and then Serbia closes the entire show in slot 15 with Kraj Meni.
San Marino is trapped in a corridor of extremely heavy hitters. It's a monumental task to stand out there.
They have to completely redefine the visual space to even be remembered in that lineup.
So, semifinal 1 is a masterclass in protecting delicate emotional ballads by separating them, like keeping Portugal's Rosa far away from Poland's Pray.
Right, managing the delicate ecosystem.
But if semifinal 1 is about protecting the delicate dishes, what happens to a running order when there are literally no delicate dishes?
Chaos. Pure chaos happens.
What happens when a producer is handed a list of absolute high BPM heavyweights? That brings us to Thursday, May 14th.
Semifinal 2.
Exactly. Semifinal 2 is a heavyweight culinary boxing match. It is a bloodbath.
Every single metric indicates that the overall field of competitors in this second semifinal is significantly stronger and much more aggressive than the first.
When you are dealing with a stronger, louder field, the running order strategy completely shifts, doesn't it?
It has to. It is no longer about creating a gentle, undulating flow. It is about managing absolute tonal whiplash.
Tonal whiplash.
You have to actively separate the giants so they don't cannibalize each other's impact.
And the giants in this lineup are honestly terrifying. Just look at the concentration of power in the final third of the show.
It's a gauntlet.
In slot 11, you have Australia bringing a vocal powerhouse with Delta Goodrum singing Eclipse. In slot 12, you have Ukraine with Rhythm.
Ukraine inherently brings a level of competitive, almost weaponized polish to their staging. You can never count them out.
Never. And then the highly coveted closing slot, number 15, goes to Norway with an explosive track called Yae Yae Yae.
The architecture from slot 11 onward is just relentless.
But the challenge for the producer is figuring out how to get the audience to slot 11 without completely exhausting them.
Right. If the entire show is pitched at a level 10, the audience will experience sensory fatigue by minute 40.
Which perfectly explains the absolute chaos of the first half.
Right.
Let's look at how they open. Slot 1 is Bulgaria with Bangaranga.
Energetic, loud, a great opener. It sets a mood.
Then slot 2 is Azerbaijan with Just Go, which is very polished and very competitive. But then in slot 3, they drop Romania with a track literally called Choke Me.
The title alone signals a massive disruption.
Exactly. We know this Romanian entry is highly provocative and entirely defined by its staging. You're putting a highly visual, provocative performance right at the top of the broadcast.
Right, your adrenaline is spiked immediately.
So how do the producers cleanse the palate after a song called Choke Me?
They do a 180.
They immediately follow it in slot 4 with Luxembourg's Mother Nature, which is this elegant, graceful return. It is pure whiplash.
You go from provocation to elegant nature tributes in a span of literally 3 minutes.
And then straight into alternative pop with Czechia's Crossroads in slot 5. It's making my head spin just reading it.
But this is deliberate disorientation.
Deliberate disorientation.
Yes. By keeping the viewer entirely off balance, constantly shifting genres and visual aesthetics, they prevent sensory adaptation. The audience can't settle into a rhythm.
So they can't zone out.
Exactly. Which means they have to pay active attention to every single song.
But within that chaos, if you look closely at this lineup, there are massive dark horses hiding in the midsection.
Yes. Slots 6 and 8 act as crucial, high-energy disruptors.
Yep, we threw those.
In slot 6, you have Armenia with Paloma Rumba, which is a fascinating Armenian-Latin fusion.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
It is. That specific cross-pollination of genres is incredibly sticky for memory retention. The brain remembers anomalies. And then in slot 8, you have Cyprus with Jala, which is a pure, unadulterated Mediterranean club track.
And look at how they are insulated. Armenia and Cyprus are completely surrounded by darker or more delicate tracks.
It's all by design.
Switzerland's emotional Alice is in slot 7, sitting right between them. And Latvia's dark atmospheric Aina is in slot 9. The producers are using Switzerland and Latvia as literal emotional breathers between these massive dance tracks.
It's giving the audience a chance to catch their breath. But all of this careful pacing is really just a runway leading up to the absolute pressure cooker at the end of the show.
The high-pressure zone. Let's really talk about slots 13 and 14.
And this is where it gets fascinating.
Because if you have Australia being a vocal powerhouse in slot 11, Ukraine being a perennial contender in slot 12, and Norway closing with an explosion in slot 15, what on earth do you do with slots 13 and 14?
You place songs there that operate on a completely different emotional frequency.
You can't just put more loud pop there.
No, you absolutely cannot put another loud, aggressive pop song in slot 13 or 14. It would be utterly destroyed by the comparison to Norway and Australia.
So they put Albania in slot 13 with Nan, an intimate, highly emotional piece. And in slot 14, they placed Malta with Bella, bringing warm Mediterranean pop.
Right.
If you're looking at this running order right now, your first thought is probably, why on earth would they sandwich Malta right before the explosive Norwegian closer?
It looks like a death sentence on paper.
It really does. But to truly understand the mechanics of this placement, we have to zoom all the way in. We need to leave the meso-level strategy of the broadcast and dive into the micro-level redemption story of a single nation.
Because when Malta steps onto that stage in Vienna in slot 14, they are not operating in a vacuum.
No, they have baggage.
A lot of it. They are carrying the cumulative heavy weight of 3 years of intense strategic failure and recalibration.
Let's trace that data, because it's a literal masterclass in how a national broadcaster reacts to failure. The decline really starts in 2023.
Right, with the busker.
Malta sends a group called the Busker with Dance, our own party. Now, it was funky, it was charming, but it was fundamentally too niche. It failed to qualify.
And in the world of competitive television, when a niche entry fails, what is the immediate psychological reaction of the broadcaster?
Total, absolute overcorrection. They panic and swing the pendulum entirely in the opposite direction. Which brings us to 2024. They send Sarah Bonnici with the song Loop. They abandon the niche funk and go for hyperkinetic, high-energy pop with massive choreography.
But it suffers the exact opposite problem. It was heavily criticized for being completely overstaged.
The staging was just too much.
The mechanics of an overstaged performance are actually fascinating. The human eye can only track one primary visual focal point at a time.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you have intense choreography, pyrotechnics, moving set pieces, and rapid camera cuts all happening simultaneously, the visual cortex becomes overwhelmed.
It's just sensory overload.
Right. The viewer stops connecting with the performer's face and simply processes a blur of kinetic energy. There is no narrative focus.
And because of that lack of focus, Malta suffers a devastating result. They fail to qualify for the second year in a row.
Which is a crisis. 2 consecutive non-qualifications mean your entire internal strategy is broken.
Which brings us to the crucial stabilization year, 2025. Mariana Conte with the song Serving.
2025 wasn't about winning for Malta. It was about stopping the bleeding.
Exactly. She places 9th in the semifinal. She just barely scrapes through. In the grand final, she places 17th.
It's not a trophy, but it was Malta's best result since 2021.
It proved that a more balanced approach could actually penetrate the televote. The ship stopped taking on water.
And that stabilization provided the exact launchpad needed for their 2026 strategy. They learned that the extremes just don't work.
You can't be too niche, and you can't assault the viewer with visual clutter.
Right. You need pure charisma and an accessible emotional core.
Enter Aiden. Aiden Kassar is not a rookie. Assume you know the Maltese music scene. Aiden is a deeply embedded strategic figure.
He's a veteran at this point.
He really is. He's known for his Mediterranean pop. He's competed in the national selections before. He was a jury member in 2025. He was the national spokesperson reading the points on live TV in 2022.
This guy understands the structural mechanics of the contest from the perspective of an artist, a judge, and a broadcaster.
That level of institutional knowledge is invaluable. He isn't just arriving with a song. He is arriving with a calculated demographic strategy. Let's deconstruct his song, Bella.
It is sung in a very deliberate mix of English, Maltese, and Spanish.
Which is brilliant. By utilizing those 3 languages, he is immediately bypassing regional voting blocks and expanding the song's accessibility.
He is directly targeting the massive Mediterranean and Latin-adjacent viewing demographic.
And the lyrical themes perfectly align with the linguistic choices. It's warm, nostalgic Mediterranean pop. It deals with universal concepts, longing, reconnection, emotional vulnerability.
It's highly relatable.
The lyrics we've seen so far capture that intimate, slightly melancholic warmth perfectly. Jabella, I'm still waiting here, and after all this time, it's you and only you.
You can instantly picture the television production for those lines.
You don't need wild pyro for that. You just need the camera pushing in close on his face to capture the charisma.
It is highly effective, economical television songwriting. But there is a detail in the composition credits that transforms this from a strategic pop song into a profound narrative of redemption.
Oh, I am obsessed with this detail. Let's talk about it.
Bella was co-written by Aiden Kassar, Joop van den Boom, and
Bonici.
the exact same artist who represented Malta in 2024 with Loop and suffered that heartbreaking failure due to the overstaged production.
Yes. The irony is almost cinematic. She is back in 2026, not on stage, but in the writing room, literally co-writing the redemption arc for her own country.
Instead of the broadcaster discarding the talent that failed in 2024, they reintegrated her hard-won experience back into the 2026 effort.
It demonstrates a remarkable institutional learning curve, and the data from their national selection show, MESC 2026, proves that this collaborative strategy has generated undeniable momentum.
Aiden didn't just win, he secured a dominant victory with 283 total points.
He crushed the public vote with 170 points and secured 113 from the jury. That means the mathematical consensus is there.
Both sides agreed.
Right. The public connects with the warm, summery aesthetic and his charisma, while the jury respects the multilingual composition and the vocal delivery. They are explicitly avoiding the visual traps of 2024.
Which brings this entire journey full circle, right back to that brutal semifinal 2 running order, Aiden in slot 14.
Sandwiched right before the explosive Norwegian closer.
Yes. On paper, it looks like a high-pressure zone, but logically, being placed 14th with a warm, summery, accessible pop song is an extraordinary televote position.
Because of the contrast?
Remember the contrast principle we discussed earlier with Sweden and Croatia?
Yeah.
If the audience is about to be hit with intense, loud theatrics from Norway and slot 15, Aiden provides the perfect, sunny, melodic contrast right beforehand.
He doesn't have to outshout Norway.
Exactly. He just has to offer a charming alternative. Provided they maintain the vocal delivery and refine the staging, Malta has an incredibly high probability of returning to the final.
They have the historical momentum, the strategic composition, and the psychological placement all on their side.
It's the perfect storm for them.
It is genuinely staggering to step back and look at the massive scope of what we've explored today. I mean, we started by looking at the sprawling, completely audacious launch of a brand new Asian market broadcasting live from Bangkok.
A move that fundamentally alters the global entertainment map.
Totally. Then we zoomed in to the meticulous psychological warfare of the Vienna 2026 running orders, analyzing how producers manipulate human memory and attention spans using tempo and genre placement.
And finally, we track the intensely personal 3-year redemption arc of Malta.
Right, culminating in a strategically brilliant, multilingual track sitting right in the high-pressure zone of semifinal 2. It really all comes down to scale and strategy.
It does. And exploring all of this raises a very profound question about the future.
I was hoping we'd get to this.
We've spent the last hour analyzing how heavily a single country's fate relies on incredibly specific, localized staging, historical momentum, and their exact placement in a European running order.
The granular details.
Right. The European contest thrives on decades of shared continental history and built-in rivalries. But as they attempt to copy this hyper-specific 70-year-old formula and paste it across the diverse, massive continent of Asia, one has to wonder.
What's the core of it all?
Exactly. Does the magic of this competition actually lie in the music itself? Or does it lie in the decades of shared, intricate history between the competing borders?
That is the million-dollar question.
Can you simply manufacture that kind of deep-rooted historical tension from scratch in a brand new market using a gamified digital-first app? Or is this a massive Asian expansion destined to feel like a completely different show entirely?
That is the ultimate question for you to mull over. Can you redraw the map and expect the tectonic plates to just settle peacefully without an earthquake?
Probably not.
I guess we will find out in Bangkok and Vienna. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Make sure to keep an ear out in the coming weeks because we are going to start seeing those early full song releases, the actual staging concepts, and the first real favorites of the season emerging.
It's going to be a wild ride.
It really is. Until then, keep watching the map.